Greetings, exiles. For the past 2 weeks, ever since the first Blight Encounter video exploded, I've been hard at work in the halls of Sanctuary with Cassia, pushing the boundaries of what is possible. And today, I'm super excited to show you the ultimate endgame version of Blight. But before we get started, I do want to put out a disclaimer that this is extremely difficult and extremely laggy. Not only will you die a lot, but you will also crash a lot. What the fuck is this rare? Extra lag.
I got you, fam. Check the other side. Check the other side.
Yeah,
I will take care of this right.
Going.
Lag. What the fuck? What the fuck?
I'm chill. But yeah, go switch sides. Go to the other side.
Whoa. So much lag, bro. I don't even know what the fuck is happening. I mean, I think I'm killing it. No, I'm not killing it. I crashed. What the fuck, bro? What the fuck? Why?
Oh shit. And the encounter is dead. But yeah, Divine Orb dropped.
What the fuck, bro? I literally went into the other side. My game insta-closed. You and your PC will be in complete agony. But if you manage to run it successfully, the results are absolutely incredible. That's right, your eyes do not deceive you. The thumbnail and title were not clickbait. The loot is completely out of this world. The gold is so high, somewhere in the ballpark of 600k to 1 million per map, which is the highest I've ever seen. And the cherry on top, you're also getting 100 mil XP per hour as a solo player, which is extremely nice. The loot is so much to the point where the game is barely holding itself together, and you will probably need to update your loot filter strictness. Now, I will put a link to mine in the description, but do keep in mind that I have hidden a lot of various useful items that could sell for between 20 to 60C, alongside a lot of high level bases, uniques, various loads of bubblegum, and I've also hidden 1x2 idols, which are the Noble Idols and the Kamasan Idols. Also, something very important that I have to say is that after you clear the encounter, do not drop your portal next to the loot. You have to run far enough away from the loot until it stops lagging and drop your portal there. Otherwise, once you go outside of the map to empty your inventory, you won't be able to load back into the map because the instance will crash and you will keep getting disconnected back to the loading menu every time you try to re-enter, essentially causing you to lose the map and the loot inside it. So, with that out of the way, how do we do it? Well, first, let's start off with the idols. Compared to the difficulty of this content, the idols themselves are actually quite the opposite and are relatively cheap to acquire. We need 7 1x3 idols, which are the totemic and burial ones. With the mods, Blight Encounters in your map spawn more non-unique monsters, and quantity with Fortune Favors the Brave. If you can't get the quant mod, that's okay. It's not mandatory for the strat to work, and you can alternatively use pack size with Fortune Favors the Brave. But you will get slightly less loot while increasing the overall lag by a lot. But at least you'll get more XP, which is nice. What is mandatory, however, is that we get to the breakpoint of 100% increased effect of explicit modifiers on your maps. So we'll be needing that on all of the 1x3 idols, as well as a singular Conqueror idol that will push us over the edge. Effective mods does increase the map's quant, rarity, and pack size, so that in itself is a big thing, but we don't want to sacrifice too many layers of extra blight monsters for it, since the more stuff we kill, the more loot and XP we'll get. The reason we need 100% increased effect is because sometimes some T17 maps will roll a mod that states rares have 2 additional modifiers, which gets bumped up to 4. This will not only give us a hefty amount of extra quant and rarity, but it will also give rares rewarding modifiers which can convert items into various high value currency and uniques. I also have Scarabs found in your maps are more likely to be less common varieties mod on my Conqueror idol, but it is not needed at all. It just came with the idol, which is nice to have. Next up, we'll be needing 5 minor idols with increased chance to spawn a Blight Encounter, so that we get it every map along with reduced costs of building and upgrading towers for a bit of utility. We want to set up the towers as soon as possible before the Blight monsters start spawning, so that all of them get as much increased rewards as possible, and so we don't have to build too many of them during the lag fest that's about to ensue. We'll still have 2 extra free slots after that, in which I personally prefer to use a singular 1x2 idol with 60% faster spawn rate of Blight monsters, and Blight chests have a chance for an additional reward mods, simply because it cuts down the amount of time you spend clearing the encounter. However, it's completely replaceable. So if you're getting overwhelmed and it's getting too laggy, you can absolutely swap it out for something else, like delirious monsters killed in your maps provide increased reward progress, or whichever else you fancy. Now let's go over the Scarabs. We'll be using Blight Scarab of Invigoration, Blight Scarab of Blooming, Blight Scarab of the Blight Heart, Horned Scarab of Bloodlines, and Horned Scarab of Glittering. I'll go over each one briefly and why we need this specific one. Blightheart gives us all the mob density, so it is absolutely mandatory for this strat to work. Bloodlines also gives us a really good amount of density, while also providing around 80% of the dropped gold and around half of the XP gains. Blooming gives us a lot of extra bosses, which contributes a decent amount to the overall loot. And they're not really as tanky anymore without the Titanic Rusted Scarab as they were in the previous iterations. Glittering gives the entire encounter and pretty much the entire map an extra 200% rarity and 100% quantity, which is absolutely massive, not just for Blight, but for almost every other high-end juiced content out there. And last but not least, Invigoration Scarab. This Scarab is the bread and butter of all the loot that ends up dropping. Every other layer of juice we've been adding until now, and will be adding on, completely pales in comparison to the Invigoration Scarab. I've ran ludicrous amounts of maps trying to figure out what the hell does this Scarab do other than more loot. And what I believe it does is it adds a very big quant, rarity, and toughness multiplier to all the Blight monsters in its range. Meaning that monsters that step outside of its range lose their bonuses. I don't know the exact numbers, but from my tests, I found out that with 0 towers buffing up any monsters, the loot is completely and utterly small and useless. If you have 2 to 3 towers, then the loot is reasonably nice. And if you have 6 or more towers buffing everything up, well, you saw the results. Because of that, we'll be using the Ring Anoint that gives us 25% increased range of Empower Towers on both of our rings, so that we can overlap as many of the towers as possible, since the buff from Invigoration stacks. You can also use Smothering Towers with increased range and cover the entire area with those instead for an easier time, but in general I find the debuff to be quite lacking without empowering towers around them, so instead we're covering the entire area with empowered towers and using 1, 2, 3 smothering towers on the main pathways to soften the mobs up. We'll also be using delirium orbs on our maps, since they give us quant and rarity multipliers as well. The more Deli orbs you can handle, the more loot you're gonna get. Personally, I find 60% to be quite comfy for my character's build, but do keep in mind though that Deli can get quite annoying at times because it can start spam teleporting the Blight monsters on top of you at any moment, which means if you happen to be standing on top of the pump, it's instantly going to die. It can also throw a lot of other various spells, projectiles, and degens around you, so don't stack too many orbs, because being able to kill the monsters relatively fast is crucial. Let's talk a little bit about maps. We are running this on T17 sanctuaries. When we're rolling for maps, we're not looking for any particular mods on them, but we are looking for at least 150% more currency with at least 120% quantity. I would advise using regular quantity chisels, since we have so many layers of quant multiplication that it ends up being surprisingly good. But you can also use avarice chisels for more currency as an alternative. After we get such a map, we check the mods to see if we can run it. And if the answer is yes, we deli it up and slap it in the map device, along with the Scarabs. I do have to give you guys caution though about a few T17 mods that you should avoid at all costs. These mods are rares are shaper touched and rares have volatile cores. Trust me, you don't want to be dealing with that. You can also run this strategy on T16s, but you need to run a relatively spacious 7 or 8 mod map, like Beach for example, so you get more Blight monster portals and more towers. The overall loot, gold, and XP is going to be less, since it's a T16, but it's still decently good. Also, you will still want to full clear the maps and look for Eater of World altars for a bit of extra quant and rarity, potential currency duplicators, and maybe, just maybe, a divine altar. And if you get a wildwood in your maps, you should absolutely utilize it ASAP. I want to briefly talk about tower placements. Earlier in the video I mentioned covering up the entire area with empower towers, with a few smothering towers thrown in the mix to soften the mobs up. However, once the encounter begins, we shouldn't rush to build everything up ASAP if there's going to be more portals and lanes spawning later. If you get unlucky and it's a small 2-3 portal encounter with a few towers, then by all means build everything up. But if you get 6 or more portals on a 1 or 2 lane encounter, you should be mindful that the later portals might spawn very close to the pump while giving us no extra towers, or maybe giving us 1 extra tower. And since chill and stun towers are our last line of defense, we want to position them as close to the last portal as possible while still overlapping them with as many empower towers as possible. Do not build chill and stun towers in multiple places on a single lane, because that will get your game to crash and you will lose the encounter because of it. We want to trickle in all the mobs into one single checkpoint so that they never stack anywhere else. Ideally, we want to be able to kill the monsters as soon as they spawn as well, but that doesn't happen all the time, especially when the waves of rare monsters start showing up. Only build extra chill and stun tower choke points on separate lanes that go in complete opposite directions of the pump, and make sure you can clear all the checkpoints of normal and magic monsters as soon as possible. Otherwise the lag will start and you will crash and more than likely lose the map. By the way, you will need to find a way to deal with the more egregious modifiers that the rare monsters can get, on top of needing tons of damage to deal with some such as Soul Eaters. You also need different types of survivability, anti-block, and life regen cancellation, among other things. The life regen cancellation in particular is extremely important, not because rares can get life regen mods on themselves, but because they can get consecrated ground, which will give life regen to everything around them. Also, chaos inoculation builds are highly recommended here, because blight monsters do way too much chaos damage. So it's best to just not have to deal with it at all. That about covers everything for this strat in particular, but what if you don't really care about min-maxing all the loot that drops and you just want to have a nice, safe, lag-free, and relaxing time, getting 100 million XP per hour and leveling up to 100 very fast? while still making around 200k gold per map? Well, don't worry, I got you covered. All you have to do is replace the glittering scarab with a lineage scarab. Replace your anoint on the ring from empowered tower range to chill towers freeze enemies for 0.2 seconds on one ring, and meteor towers drop burning ground on the other, and then spam scout towers everywhere and slap a chill tower somewhere around the pump. If portals with scout tower immunity spawn, drop a few meteor towers and you'll basically barely have to do anything. The towers will do probably around 80% of the heavy lifting. You can even drop some of the minor idols and get more 1x2 idols with Blight Monsters spawn faster mod, just so you get through with it quicker. You still want to be getting the Blight Encounters to have a 100% chance of spawning in your maps though. And you can also experiment with how many empowered towers you can get away with, while the Scout and Meteor towers are still managing to clear everything for you. You still get some loot for your time, but it's not going to be anything too crazy, since we won't really be utilizing as many empowered towers in the strat. With that being said, that's pretty much everything I've been exploring for the past 2 weeks with Blight. It has been an incredible journey to get to this point, and I hope you had as much fun watching it as I did making it. If you have any questions, recommendations, or feedback, feel free to drop them down in the comments below. I do read and respond to as many of them as I can. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you wish to see my future Path of Exile content, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching, and stay sane, Exiles.